Welcome everyone to another episode of the Dumpster Talks. We are here with a very, very special guest today.
Sure.
Our good friend Ken Birkenstock, everyone.
How are you guys?
Yes, Ken is a man of many things. He's a real estate agent right now, an investor, crypto guru.
It's an absolute stretch.
Many more things too. But yeah, Ken is our longtime friend, and we're just happy to have him here.
Just disclaimer. I was going to say, sorry. I had to put the glass on because my eyes are killing me just because of the sun. So if you guys are sitting there
good.
thinking,
I've been in that seat. I've been in that
Exactly.
angle many times during the dumpster.
it's like
It's a hard angle. Yeah.
clear
So
shot.
good.
But no, just a little bit about myself. Come from a background in real estate that's based upon our family business. Essentially, I was going to say, my background in real estate started because my mom kicked off her career in real estate probably over 25 years ago.
Wow.
Started in Lancaster City, knocking on doors, just saying, hey, listen, how can I help you out? Do you need help with, finding a house, buying a house, flipping your house? And that's how she's been able to build herself into the powerhouse today, just through diligence, hard work, and, constant commitment. And
That's awesome.
I guess the opportunity I had to meet you guys was us just playing basketball, and then
Yes,
kind of by chance having a conversation of just like, hey, tell me about yourself, and us being able to open up about our own lives, and also the experiences that we've all had, and how it's so fascinating to hear somebody who we're still within the same county, Lancaster, but we have all these different connecting points or interactions, whether it's interest in investing, developing yourself as an individual, building up some kind of deeper understanding of the world, or moral, or you name it. And that's how I would say our conversations kicked off, and that's why I appreciated you guys, because it's even before this podcast, even before I got to know this aspect of all three of you, I was always like, what, there's three people I can always call and say, hey, let's just have a chat. What are you guys up to? How can you improve your life? How can you improve yourself? And ultimately, don't do anything bad.
How is it that so like you said, when you met us, we just started talking about, do you always kind of, what kind of drives you to go in to just talk to a person and understand, I wouldn't say when we go to play basketball, you definitely stick out to us as you're trying to figure out what we're into and what we like to learn about and stuff.
Crypto is what caught my attention.
Never a good start. But we'll keep going.
Crypto?
Sorry, you guys were gonna say something.
Yeah, I just noticed you're a very outgoing person, and that day when we first met playing basketball, there was just something about you that just stuck with me and all of us, and I think that's kind of part of the reason why we have you here today. I think you're a perfect guest to have on here, but yeah, if you want to talk about what Alex was saying about how your outgoingness.
Two things I think I've really been blessed to kind of understood or been taught in life, whether it was conscious or subconsciously. The first thing is always say hi. I know how silly that might sound. Always say hi, because you have no idea who somebody is. Even if you get to know them a little bit better, ultimately it's fascinating how deep this world can go, both with meeting people, going places, understanding different cultures. It's simple as even trying different foods. You just almost, how do I say this? You almost add a chapter to your book, or add a page to your encyclopedia of words, or just things you didn't know existed. And all of a sudden it's I always imagine you draw a Venn diagram, and you're okay, my circle is now encompassing a different understanding, or just interaction with, whether it's business, back ends of understanding concepts, and just going about in life with the understanding that everything you're ever going to learn is from somebody else. You don't really sit there of course, ideas and creating concepts and patterns and whatever you wanted to come up with, but everything based off that knowledge is from something you learned. It's not like you woke up or you were born and it's sweet, I know how to make a perfect London broil, and now I can whip up some awesome bakery goods, and I'm just picking food because that's something as simple as going in the kitchen and learning from your parents. That's a cultural thing that you kind of learn. But okay, in general, just ask other people who they are, because you'd be fascinated what you can find out about them, yourself, and what there else is in the world. So
that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of when we go to Dan and Mike over the past 2 years have had us going to different networking events and just stuff that's going to help you in your business career. And sometimes when I would start going to them, I'd be so we're working in this scrapyard, obviously trying to bring business here. And so sometimes I think why do I want to talk to like these people, they're not in the industry at all or whatever. But that's what they always taught me, is like, you never know whoever you meet, they could have a connection in your industry, or they can help you with something later down the road. You never know who.
So that's such a good point. And one of the things that I've always been fascinated by is not just not knowing what that person might, I would say, even entail with benefiting you and not benefiting you. I don't want to be like biased on, hey, you always have to get something from somebody, but it's just fascinating how you can see the web of life, even from just like how small Lancaster County is. We probably all know a lot of people we don't even realize we each know. So it's always fascinating just to talk about, hey, you never know who you might know that's going to bump you into somebody else. But the other aspect of that I kind of learned was in college, I ended up dropping out and left to start a startup company. And the reason for the startup was to essentially take an industry and compartmentalize it. So ultimately from there, every player who does have some kind of act in the industry. Like, for example, I'll take what you guys have here. Like, I was driving into the yard, I see a waste management truck. You know, and one of the things that I've always thought about is like logistics. So for example, if you have, let's say, a recycling facility, and again, I'm probably going to say things I don't know what I'm talking about. So
good.
Comment section, please give me some peace here. But
good.
But for example, if you were like what Uber has started to do with Uber Freight, you know, you go into one segment of the industry, and then essentially what you do is, if I'm correct, either horizontal or vertical integration. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of those two. But essentially, if you can end up creating such a database where in entirety you have everybody who would have a hand on just either getting you the actual materials, delivering the materials, you know, storing the materials, you know, all those different things, or players, so to speak, it's fascinating how you can start to compare and contrast both how those people do business, both how they're doing their pricing, how they're charging you for certain things. And then again, that's where I think you start to get into the open market concept of like, hey, you know what, if Billy Bob down the road is going to, you know, deliver my stuff for, I don't know, 10 cents. I can't really use the best comparison, but, you know, he's going to charge me this much per mile for carrying this amount of stuff versus, you know, Mr. Joe down the road is going to charge me a discount for carrying that stuff. For example, it's having those relationships. You're going to be able to just outmaneuver other people in the industry. So that's why I always say, don't be afraid to add to your database, because you're going to be amazed how you can end up benefiting yourself at the end.
I think it's pretty well established that every community, every industry that you're in, connections are just like the big thing with everything. It doesn't matter if it's scrap, real estate, anything. Connections are one thing that really just drives everything in this world. So I think that's a really good point.
Absolutely.
With that, for sure.
Absolutely. One last thing I always want to say too, make sure when you make a connection, you want to have people who I would say are respect your time, value you as an individual, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if, you know, you're a janitor, or if you essentially are somebody who I would say, you know, just, you know, blue collar, white collar, pick the difference. But if that person is a genuine person and they're going to be there in your corner, keep them. I please keep them, because unfortunately in life, you know how it can go, where people just don't realize the value of your time and don't respect it, and ultimately, you know, it comes at a cost to you and nobody else. So
sure. Yeah. Very well said. I just feel like we learned so much from you, Ken. It's crazy.
Listen, man.
The vast amount of knowledge you have on a lot of stuff.
I don't.
I just appreciate it.
I don't. It's
everything you do.
You guys will have such, if you continually do this podcast with the individuals I've seen you brought in, you're going to be beating every other player in this game. So don't want to hype you up too much. Just be careful. Chat GPT does it, or GPT does exist. So
for a price now.
Yeah.
So you're 23.
Yes, and I feel like a 65-year-old. I do have AARP. Don't find me.
In the real estate game, right? And
claim.
Your mother helped you get into that?
Yes. So sorry, you continue. Interrupting.
Right. I mean, go into that. What, you know, how important was it that she was there for you, and also any lessons that like you learned and stuck with you?
Wow.
I guess, did you like just to go off of that, did you ever think like, is real estate something that you always like looked ahead and thought you wanted to do, or does it just kind of happen?
It's very interesting to ask this question, because now I really do have to think about how I ended up getting into this world. So got to be transparent, little nepotism. My mom is Ann Lusk. She's a successful realtor who, again, built herself from the ground up. Having an individual like that be a role model and be in your environment, I think was something that was hugely beneficial to me. I think we even had this discussion last night just about, you know, your environment will shape you. Like, doesn't matter if you're 50 years old, doesn't matter if you're 20, doesn't matter if you're a kid. Like, what surrounds you, what you eat, how you talk, you know, what you consider acceptable morally, what you don't consider acceptable morally. Excuse me. But that is something huge that ultimately will change you, whether it's physically, whether it's psychologically. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is how aware you are to that environment and how aware you are in what to put in your environment, what to put in your body is a huge, you know, differentiating factor going into.
Some people aren't lucky enough to have that type of environment when they're coming up. So you make a really good point.
And that's where we kind of talked about, unfortunately, you know, if you look at areas where I just hate to say where there's a lot of crime or violence, and, you know, kids just don't get to live out to their potential. And that's something that's, you know, definitely frustrates me. And I think what we've always had a common ground on was ultimately the goal is to not just be successful, to be successful and be able to say like, oh, look, I can buy whatever car I want. I can, you know, purchase whatever house I want. It's to give back to the community. That's been my goal since the beginning. And what actually got me into real estate was that mindset. And that's something that came from my mom. This was somebody who, again, you know, growing up, she worked at Armstrong, you know, because of the time and history that she worked in, you know, women were treated differently. And that was always something that fascinated me to go and hear this. And then, you know, you let's just be honest, in reality, no matter how you want to pitch it, there are still going to be people who are prejudiced. There are still going to be people who, you know, are going to look at you differently because of your religion, your race, your sex. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, the part that is going to stand out about you as an individual and your legacy is how you act and how you are in those situations where, you know, you're going to be able to show who you are as an individual. You know, did you flip out? Did you go and, you know, raise your voice, or, you know, however you handle stressful situations, family situations, personal situations, and also business situations. They all kind of coincide. You know, how you might handle something at home and then have it be different, you know, at the business is something where I think sometimes even myself, I have to check myself and be like, wait, why am I going to have this kind of approach here? Whereas I'm not going to, you know, get the results I want from just either a positivity standpoint or just even a production standpoint. I'm kind of rambling here, but what I always think is, you know, in life, you want to be comparable and consistent throughout a lot of what you do, and from a positive standpoint, not so much like a mix and match. Like, hey, today I'm going to go down a 12-pack. Why? I don't know. But tomorrow, then I'm going to, you know, work my butt off on this project and do this, do this, do this. Again, the number one thing that's going to set you apart in life is waking up and consistently being able to achieve at a high level with the day-to-day, I would say, not struggle, but the choices and options you choose and make. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you wake up and the first thing you're going to do is, you know, have a big breakfast of, you know, just super sugary cereal, it's probably not going to get you as much of a benefit versus, you know, hey, let's maybe have some eggs, or, you know, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you know, just a healthier option. Yeah. So to think along that line, everything you do, action, reaction, you have to think of that more in the moment. Because I think a lot of people, and unfortunately, I think even for us in our generation, let's just take this as an example. How often have you been on your phone today?
For me, it's probably been a good majority of the day.
Okay. Just ballpark. Just number. Give me something. Hours.
Hour.
Okay. Hour two.
Yeah, about hour
okay.
2 today.
How much on your phone time was mindless scrolling? How much was actually productive? And how much was, again, just literally having the phone out to just be like, oh, I'm doing something? Because I think a lot of times in life, you know, have you ever like tried to sit down and seriously study and you just catch yourself like literally like, okay.
Something in my brain is just telling me to look at my phone, some notification, but nothing's even there. I think it happens to a lot of us.
Exactly. And the number one thing I always talk about is being able to, you know, at some level, have a conscious that is aware, and also be able to subconsciously, you know, move in a pace or move in a way that is, again, beneficial, and you're not just sitting there and constantly seeing your time go out the window. Because in all honesty, I think one of the most beautiful parts about life, if you're given an opportunity to you know, live a full life, is that you can be at these different chapters, be at these different ages, and handle your day-to-day tasks, handle your day-to-day, you know, living differently. because I think unfortunately for when you're in your unfortunately, but fortunately when you're in your 20s and you're in your teens, you will make mistakes. You will mess up. You will, like, for example, one of the things that we had met on was crypto. And just giving a little background, I had met somebody who I consider a very close friend. He'd helped me get into crypto, started out with like $1,000 and helped me flip it into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And one of the hardest moments for me was, you know, in life, having a success like that. Again, you're not going to sit there and be like, cool, just banked out 100 million and, you know, I'm now extremely wealthy. It's an amount of money that can help build towards a difference in life, but it's not going to solve everything for you. It's not going to make your relationship with whoever you are in a relationship with happier, for better, you know. So in a weird way, I've now completely gone on a tangent, but what I'm trying to say is everything ties into itself, and ultimately being as aware as possible with each and every action and trying to see what that goal is with, again, what was the first thing I think I had said this to Alex last night. You would reference something just having to do with either work or life. And I was like, okay, step one, what is your goal? Why is this your goal? What is your goal? And what is the process to accomplish it? Because I think a lot of what happens, especially with phones, especially with, you know, easy dopamine reception / you know,
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's just like, you can just tell yourself, I'm doing something. Not doing anything, but I'm doing something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think in life, you know, when you go and you set a goal, you know, personally for me, like, okay, I need to start getting into the gym more. Like, as badly as I want to say having a career and work is everything, it's not. You know, you need to have personal relationships. You need to have some kind of social life. You need to have, you know, some kind of quality time for yourself physically. And, you know, just one of the smallest things of going to the gym, starting your day off like that or ending your day like that is so important. And I've personally have failed. And that's where even my goal right now in my head and written down at home is need to go to the gym starting X date. I don't want to say it because then I'm going to be held accountable. So it's a secret.
Have you found that something like going to the gym, is it better if you schedule it out, something like that, in your day, or
Absolutely.
How do you schedule out your day with the things you're going to do, or how do you go about
Absolutely
prioritizing your day the best way?
One of the biggest things in my mind that will stand out as just again differentiating factor between being a younger kid who, you know, let's just go through this. When you go to school, your schedule's set. You go to class at this time, you go to the next class at that time, and you go to your final class at that final time. When you are in your own world, again, we have no teachers, no parents, you yourself, you know, let's say you have your own place in an apartment, you have the ability to do whatever you want. Think about it.
Yep.
Excuse me, as scary as that sounds, you could walk out and be like, you know what, I'm going to do nothing today. Excuse me, I'm going to get, you know, do the wrong things. I'm going to eat a lot of sugar today. I'm not going to work out. I'm going to stay in my house. I'm going to spend money on Uber Eats, and I'm not going to look for a job. I'm not going to do this. The number one thing that I always would remember when I would waste time was not scheduling my day. And I learned that as I got into this business, as I got into real estate, as I got into just understanding, you know, the value of, you know, life and the time that you're given is not, it's, how do I say this? It's free now until ultimately you have to check out, so to speak. And then there's, you know, you're done after that. So with all this time you're given, how can you use it to the best of your current ability and what you're trying to be able to achieve when you're in a different part of your life? So it's weird because in a way, and I don't want to use Skyrim as an example, but you know, you have your main quest and you have your side quests. And at the end of the day, your main quest is really what builds or creates the legacy you want to leave. But the side quests are also going to still have some kind of say in who you were as a person and what you decide to do with the time that you had. So for everybody out there, Skyrim is a very fun game. Highly recommend you look it up. That's all I have to say.
Fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go. Thank you.
But it's a good analogy for what you're trying to talk about, though. It's just crazy to me, like, I don't know. People all have this, like, sense of what they should be doing in this world, and, like, I don't know. Everyone has their own purpose in life that they're just trying to work towards. It's pretty cool.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
and each
you
one of you
can.
guys.
Yes, sir.
What do you feel your purpose is? And I like to ask this question and for one very good reason. And I'm sure people argue with me on this, but in my opinion, the beauty of life is whatever you want. You can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. I feel like for me, it would probably be number one, having a family, or just continuing, I guess, what I what I would bring to this world with children and stuff.
Okay.
I think that, and also just trying to make an impact on the world in some way for the better. It's crazy to think about. In 100 years, we're all not even going to be here anymore.
Exactly.
So, like, what are we doing now every day that maybe someday will potentially impact them? I don't know though if like I don't know if I really care about the like leaving an impact for them though. It's so weird, but yeah.
It's entirely in your field. It's whatever you want, and that's the
Sure,
best part.
Whatever you want it to be.
Because I'd love to hear your guys' responses, but the one thing that stands out to me is, let's look back at this video in a year and ask that same question, and I'd love to see how different or same that thought process is, or just even in depth.
Yeah.
But I want to see, the one thing I always tell myself is, if you have this difference in time, what was that growth? Where did that growth come from? And then how can you essentially, I want to say encapsulate it, that might not be the right word, but for another comparable, I would say, lesson or experience or analogy, where it's like, hey, you know what, like I learned a lot about life in this aspect, where can I learn about life in a different aspect? So
I don't know, I would say for me, just being like, I guess just like as a part of my family, and then just with my friends, just being the best I can, like best person I can be to them. And
who's the best person to you? That's a question I think people sometimes, do you notice how sometimes in life you're always trying to create this like image, or you want to live up to the standards of somebody else? I like to ask, what is it that you want? Because in life, it's you. At the end of the day, it's you. You're in your body, you're doing your things. You can have an impact on other people, but ultimately the greatest impact is on yourself.
So I think like in my family, there's a couple people that I would like to be like take care of my family how they have for us. And then in the business, just like grow this business as it is, or grow anything off to the side that we can like branch off of this, and just have, I don't know, just have this business be like, take care of my people, really, how Dan and Mike have for us, really.
Nice.
It's definitely hard to think about like what your goal, like I don't really even think about that much what my goals are, or what I aspire to be, or who I aspire to be like. It's definitely something I should think about more and plan out.
It's crazy when you take 2 seconds and you just disconnect yourself from the moment. Like right now, if you think about everything you've done the last week, month, year, and you can start to like really break it down and be like, okay, where was like a really positive growth development moment, and where was there a time where I just, should have taken the 2 seconds, separated myself, came back and been like, wow, I need checked. Like I need checked right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say my purpose eventually to just give back to all of my people. I feel like they've supported me in a lot of things, and I would love to just give back, whether that's money or traveling, or just taking care of my people.
So the one thing I thought was interesting, and you had brought this up with what you would reference, and you also as well, Alex, but the tool of money. One of the best things I learned, again, from a close friend, Steve, was that money is a tool. I think a lot of our society, unfortunately, the culture is commonly that money is this entity that's supposed to control you and make your life inherently better. And, ultimately just having the dollar is going to make you have a soul or some, I don't know. That's not the best analogy, but
I get what you're saying.
It's frustrating because, if you look at this country, there's such a difference from the bottom to the top. It is unfathomable. Like if you were to even show somebody like 100 years ago who's living the high life in the 1920s, like some of the technology that people would have today, I'm sure that there'd just be a moment of like, that's science fiction, of course. But again, the one thing that I've also kind of, the benefit of being in a first world country, for example, is although there is this gap, there is also the benefit of having technology be able to reach a wider array of people. So let's think about this. How many people had like laptops and phones in the early 2000s? It wasn't too common. But now, due to the fact that, it actually has a working case and benefits, each individual from a work standpoint, it's positive to be able to see even people who necessarily couldn't as easily afford a higher quality of life, still be able to access the internet, still be able to access Google. Somebody I'm really close with, he's like the vice president of one of the local United Ways. And he was even talking, he just sat me down. I was like, oh, well, dude, we should build an app where essentially everything that is, a waste product at a restaurant, or, if Walmart's going to throw bakery items away, or if there's some kind of food that can be given to a central source and then, redistributed to, groups of people in a local setting. I was like, we should do that. And he's like, Ken, listen, I hate to do this to you, but not everybody even in this country has internet. Yeah. And like that for me was like the moment of like, whoa, okay. Like, yes, you're in a first world country, but not everything in this country is first world. And my goal is, again, not to get lost into the materialistic aspect, but I would love for everybody to have access to Google or chat. What is it, GBT or GPT? Again, because I'm telling you, man, there's just such a revolution that's happening for our generation. And it's almost frustrating to see it happen. Not frustrating to see it happen for us, but it's frustrating to see it happen for us. And our parents are almost like not missing out, but not being able to fully understand the gravity of what is occurring in their lifetime.
For sure.
And it's like such a, oh man, what's that one futuristic cartoon show? It's like Meet the something. I forget. Meet the Jetsons. I think.
Yes, that's what it
Jetsons.
is.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like flying cars. Like we thought everyone would have that. Well, now we actually have a device that we can literally look up a majority, if not a lot of questions, and be able to get some kind of answer, understand how to work towards creating that answer. So I've talked enough. I'd love for you guys to ask some more questions.
Well, I think, okay, so like, I was going to ask you about like, so you're saying about how like really money is not going to make you like happy or anything, but it's something that you would like. Then I think back to like every time that we came and hung out with you, like,
yeah,
it started off as us talking, like, we were interested in your investments and stuff that you told us about. So we kind of did go to like learn how to make some money or learn about that.
Yeah.
But like it always turns into more kind of, it turns into like actual lessons too then.
Yeah.
Like life lessons. So what do you think keeps you like what keeps you like, I don't know, would you say, because you are working for money. So do you think money keeps you going every day, or what kind of like, what makes you want to get up and be, and we also talked about like, every day you want to be your best.
Yeah.
Like you, like, it's kind of sad to say, but like the day you were born, there was probably a bunch of other like people that didn't make it. So you want to make the best of this life. Like what drives you to get up every day and do that? Just be the best that you can.
First thing I want to say, if a stranger invites you to their house and says, "I'm going to show you how to make money," don't go. No, I'm joking. I want to be funny with that, because I just thought that was funny.
It does sound weird, but like, that's how we got.
But that's how it kicked off.
That's how we built our connection, was because we knew that you're into the same stuff that we're.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was so fun. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, if my kid's watching this, what's the one thing I want to say? Just because they make a promise, just maybe.
No, I'm not saying it in a weird way, but
no,
that is how our connection started.
Absolutely. What is it for me? I'm.
Or like, what's your? I guess. What do you think your purpose or your dreams are? Kind of.
I have to be very transparent with what I'm going to say, and I hope people can understand how I'm trying to say it. I was blessed. Like, for example, 2008 like did affect our family, but there were people that I knew that it just absolutely, like, financially have never been able to recover. I mean, it's 2023, and I still know financially, like, those people have just never been able to get back on the saddle, unfortunately. So from that standpoint, I was blessed. I was always in a setting where I would say my parents both came from backgrounds where they just never had the opportunities I had. Like, it's just crazy to even think. I wish my mom or dad was here, just kind of go over some of the stories of, my mom was a kid cleaning off bakery floors for, like, I don't know. I don't want to be over exaggerating, but just not a lot of money. And ultimately that was how she would then, buy the seeds to then grow her garden, where then she would resell the vegetables to then use that money to help the family out in any way she could. So it's moments like that where you realize why, for example, a family who doesn't have a lot of money, or somebody who has a lot of, how do I say this, responsibilities, like a kid, unfortunately, like, a kid is expensive. I think we've all proven that, but no, in all seriousness, I had the privilege of not having to jump into life thinking every day, where's my next meal going to come from? Where's my next, dollar going to come from? And that was such a huge opportunity to be able to, I would say, expand the way I think. And for me, I don't go to my job because it's like, okay, great, now I need to go make, X amount of dollars today. I go to my job with one thing in mind, and that's to put my clients in the best position financially for themselves, for their children, for whatever generations are to come. Because, for example, the number one thing that frustrates me when I look at a lot of real estate agents, you are not a salesperson. You are a fiduciary. You are to do what's in the best interest of your client with a either once in a lifetime large asset purchase or a multiple transactions in a lifetime asset purchase. And where they go and buy that house, how much those expenses are on an annual basis, and then the process of then relisting it and then buying something new, that's very financially consuming. When you start to, if you even just realize how much money you end up spending on moving fees and just hours of the day that you have to put into arranging, you name it, a moving truck, reorder,
expenses.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because in life, in a weird way, like, you can't buy time with money, but time can essentially afford you money, so to speak. So it's just very interesting when you start to break down how my perspective on money has been changed, because I look at it not so much as every day I need to go to work to make money. I look at it as every day I go to work because the new experiences I'm going to get, the new people I'm going to meet, the new opportunities that are always going to be there. Because of the job I'm in and the line of work I do, it's never the same. And that can be extremely fun, and it can also be extremely stressful.
For sure.
I think if more people looked at it that way, you're not, I have to go to work today. I get to go to work today.
You're a cog. You're a cog in the machine. As some people might not want to hear that, and please don't. I apologize for interrupting you. That was rude. But it, you do have a purpose on this earth. It kills me, because there were times in my life where I think we can be very open now with just about everyone's personal battles. And there was time that I dealt with depression and just I'm just gonna say suicidal thoughts. And it's very tough to be able to separate yourself, especially when you're in a negative setting and you're telling yourself hey, I'm not worthy. Hey, I don't deserve this opportunity, that opportunity, or what, these friends are too good for me. Or
you just think you're not good enough at all for anything.
Exactly. And that's not the truth. I don't care if you have zero ability to walk and talk on your own. You, at some point, you are making somebody's day, even if it's a parent who's taking care of a disabled child. I hate seeing kids that are down on themselves because of something that they couldn't control or they were born with, or this and that. And I'm like, dude,
it's happening more and more nowadays too. I think with partly the social media and being connected with everyone around you.
Yeah,
it should be interesting, almost scary to see what our future generations are going to look like.
Oh my gosh.
And I can see how already it's affecting our generation now.
Yeah.
I saw in Texas they're potentially going to ban maybe for social media for 18-year-olds and under. So
I'm not against it.
I mean, that might be just have to be the path we have to go down.
Yeah.
Because the negative effects of social media and this phone probably does. There is good things about it, but it does probably outweigh the bad.
There's two ways I always look at things, and this is more from a business standpoint. So don't go into your home and be X, Y, and Z, but what's the return and what's the original cost? Here's a perfect example. Okay, so social media companies, we'll use TikTok. Let's just say it. TikTok's owned by a Chinese entity, which is most definitely influenced by the CCP. I hope Xi Jinping doesn't say anything, but ultimately, they've even come out and said, "Hey, we have a different version of this platform in China for kids. Our kids versus yours." And the one in China is more based on, "Hey, let's talk about science today. Let's talk about math. Let's talk about history." Whatever history you consider history, and math. And it's so interesting to me. Perfect example, one of my really good friends, Quinnen, he's from China. I got to meet him by chance. He was one of my clients' friends who was coming over to the US. He was taking SAT, and I was like, you know what? I'd love to meet this kid. He speaks English relatively well. I don't care if he does want to talk to me or doesn't want to talk to me. let me roll with him for at least a day. And I ended up actually having him come to me like the first days of college. So we took his SAT test and we showed up to my college, and he spent like 4 days with me. Went to Hershey Park, like just had a really like cool, I just am going to say American experience.
Yeah.
But one of the best conversations I've ever had with him was going through all, and not just with him, but I would even say in life, from understanding the value of different ideas and how they can be, you know, reapplied and rearranged. So he actually showed me the Alibaba app.
Really?
And this is when I'd left for the startup, and I was actually like just going through this. It was fascinating how simplified everything within the app was. You want to borrow money? Cool. Like, tell us how much you want to borrow and we'll send it to you.
For those that don't know what Alibaba is.
Yes, Alibaba in a way is like Amazon to us, but is much more involved in an individual's life in China. Like, for example, like you probably have the Amazon app, Amazon Prime. You make an account, you know, you get a discount for shipping and the product, and you get, you know, TV shows and all that. They have an app where essentially it almost even like locks in your bank, locks in your, what is it, like your social card, so to speak, data recognition. Like basically you could run your life off that app. And it blew my mind because it's at one point or another, and let's just, I want to be honest, but it's opinionated, because at the end of the day, the future can do whatever the future wants. We are most likely heading towards that. Like it's you know, your phone's on your lap, We're literally, you know, we're literally filming with phones, and it's like, I was even surprised because I was like, wow, the quality of the video is actually like solid for being a phone. And just think about that. We've made such a jump where we had this necessity even 2 decades ago. Like, you know, the big freaking, like, oh my gosh, like I want to call it the bat phone, but that's not the block phone. But you go from that to being able to run your existence on a you know, like 6x3. I don't know.
Every day working on it, and just like, yeah.
I could not go into the office and just be able to perform at least at a growth level, because I can still access social media. I can still do my marketing. I can like do my Google business off that. And it's like a decade plus ago, I still remember getting the Xbox like 360 and being like, whoa.
The Wii.
Wow.
It's crazy how fast we're actually moving. When you look back at it. Ken, I wanted to talk to you about predictions for real estate market in 2023. Maybe some other predictions just for the whole market in general. How are you feeling about this year now going into 2023? A lot of people are talking about a recession. Just want to hear your opinions on what you think is going to happen this year.
Gotcha. So I think Jalen Hurts has thrown 4 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jalen, if you're watching this, bless you. Side predictions, important ones. Yes. For the housing market. So this is a discussion I've really had with a lot of different people. So last week, I actually just was at a private equity firm. I'm actually trying to do a purchase of a mobile home park with one of the individuals. And he was telling me how he got out of the market in October. When I say out of the market, he sold everything. Stocks, mutual, bonds, you name it.
Wow.
Gone. Like, dude is 100% cash.
So was that when it was really, houses were really doing good, or was that?
So I'm taking this more of a general, like, more focused on like, so the stock market.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll definitely jump into the real estate market and I'll explain, like, for example, why I'm even doing the purchase I'm looking to do right now. Yep. But going back into the stock, so just even hearing that this individual was getting out of all of these different asset classes, and on top of it, now he's, you know, trying to sell me this percentage of mobile home park that he owns. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah,
because
you just pull out.
Yeah, it's like, why is this guy pulling? Like, I'm asking him, hey, have you ever had a problem? Like, have you never gotten a dividend check? Like, what is it that I'm not understanding that, you know, there's a reason behind it? He said, Ken, in all honesty, I'm waiting because I'm going to expand into emerging markets. And for me, I just was like, it was like my socks were blown off because, not to sound like just a typical retail investor, but not just often you probably don't see people getting into emerging markets. Maybe they'll be, you know, buying some kind of, you know, Chinese stock. They might buy Alibaba, they'll do something else. And it even fascinated me more because I was like, okay, when you say emerging markets, are you just buying like ticker symbols?
What is emerging markets?
So in my opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to get checked by everybody on CNBC, emerging markets is everything outside the US. So like a really popular emerging market is China. Another one is I would say Turkey's kind of hopping into it.
They're
India,
really big with metal, we know.
Yeah,
Turkey is their
yeah.
steel.
So you
Well,
have
Turkey's like one of the biggest. Turkey's like one of the biggest like consumers.
fascinating. That I'd actually love to talk to you guys about later.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because you start to see all these different areas that, or not areas, but excuse me, countries that have been able to develop from globalization. Like let's talk about how the U.S. Essentially gave, but a lot of manufacturing was moved overseas, and that was because the U.S. wanted to give all these countries that hadn't necessarily built up this huge, I would say, value in being able to produce just anything. Like it probably was just basic goods or commodities, but being able to take a piece of metal and then, at the end of the day, eventually have it be a phone by the time it gets to the end consumer. I don't think that's what, people planned on happening when we started to, not sell out, but again, say, hey, we're going to give the Chinese the ability to manufacture a lot of our goods. And then, at the end of the day, we're going to benefit because it's at a cheaper cost. It's at a cheaper cost to the consumer. And that's what we want. We want happy citizens. And it's been fascinating because now you've had COVID, which almost like, it's like we all got blue pilled that globalization was the best way to go. And now all of a sudden, when we have this pandemic, it's like, okay, we've lost like the ability to easily get a lot of items that also could be manufactured in the US. And I think what kind of has happened, and this is my personal opinion, but I think due to technology, due to where we're probably going to go with, I'm going to say it, robots, we're going to have a completely different vision of how we're able to afford cheaper products. Because if your workforce is a little bit different and it's based upon a cheaper workforce, so to speak, but you now have an ability to get these commodities and everything needed for a product to manufacture in the same place, so to speak, the US. We don't need globalization. Now, am I saying that in general? No. I do think to a minor reality, not one country is going to have every resource within its vicinity to be able to say we don't need anybody. Because let's go back. That's actually what happened to the Chinese back in the 18th, 17th century. I don't know.
It's interesting to think. Like I never thought of it that way, but ever since we've been younger and stuff growing up, everything's made in China. So, and I guess the reason is because it made it cheaper and it was easier. Yeah. But then now, you wonder if we always focus on just producing stuff in the U.S., if COVID would have been as bad, or if it would have shut as much stuff down, maybe we could have kept rolling.
And again, that we could.
It's weird to think.
We could go into the rabbit hole because really, then we go into policy and who said what, and how this person is wrong, and you're not wrong, because at the end of the day, I think the realization that occurred, and this is what I think has been the most beneficial, is we are the most powerful country in the world. And not because we can press a button and fire nukes. I think it's a variety of things. First, culture. I love the fact that everyone sitting at this table has some different background. And at the end of the day, that's as you literally open up the magnifying glass, you go to any other place in the U.S., and we have a array of different individuals. Does not matter about race, does not matter about religion. You could just keep adding to an encyclopedia. And I'm not going to say that it's bad on the rest of the world, but there's just not that much ability in other countries. If you go to China, there's not this huge diversity of different ethnic backgrounds. As you go to different countries, like India, for example, I'm sure that's a better example, but the U.S. is just so unique in that sense. And I think the most beautiful aspect about it is the fact that, yes, there are things that we have to improve on, and we can go down that rabbit hole another time. But at the end of the day, I do believe the fact that as our culture has continually developed, and as we apply more technology and as we apply more processes to essentially improve just basic access to amenities, necessities, and then potentially amenities, this is the best place to live.
It really is.
And I think it's going to keep heading that direction. But I think we have to realize in this country that the goal is not to separate into different sects. The goal is to unite as one individual with transparently the goal of improving everyone's lives, not just heredity.
I think it is important to look at the good things that the U.S. is doing too. I feel like nowadays what we're seeing on the news and social media too is like, I don't know, it just highlights all the bad things about America. And I think it's good to highlight the good things we do too.
This was a discussion we had as well, and it was kind of talking about like the yin and yang, the balance of power. And this was going into the fact that, like, don't get lost in the thought that there's this never-ending negativity that is like unescapable, because just as there's that negativity, there's the positive, and that's also, you know, balancing one and the other out. And that is kind of, again, like looking at life from, I think I said this to you guys, I look at life from almost like karma / energy, and there's never going to be too much negative energy to, you know, never allow the positive energy to exist, but vice versa. And I think that's where we went into the discussion of like religion. Like, we'll save that. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I was, developing, I had, again, left college, was in the startup, and again, really good friend Steve, he had even said, you know, Ken, don't let the world fool you, because just because good is not being filmed doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I think one of the best quotes I've heard, and I'm probably not going to recite it accurately at all, but just because the greatest trick the devil ever proved was tricking people into not existing. I don't know. You can look
something along those lines.
Something along those lines, and it's fascinating because in life you can't go into the mentality of, you know, I've had a bad day, like screw 2023. And no, like, you've had a bad day. What went wrong? How do I improve it? Let's go about the next day with better.
Just learning from those mistakes.
Exactly. It's just easier to just it's easier to just blame it on the big thing. So this whole thing just sucks. But yeah, it's definitely, I guess, like looking at like the glass half full or half empty. Some type of thing.
Two things: you're alive, and you're in one of the most resource-filled countries to be able to pick yourself off the ground and say, "Hey, I'm me. Give me a shot." So
we're blessed with this opportunity for sure.
I thank you guys.
Yes, thank you. Just want to ask you one thing here about crypto, since you are what I would call a crypto guru. Do you think crypto is going to have a resurgence soon? What do you feel like? Do you want to even ever get back into it at all? And also, I'll let you answer that first, actually.
So I'm going to answer this. Let's get back to the real estate question.
Okay.
Once we're done with crypto, because that actually is something I do want to kind of discuss for our age group, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Anybody watching the video. So do I think crypto will have a resurgence? I want to say yes, and here's the reality. I got the opportunity to meet Nouriel Roubini. I got the opportunity to meet Mike Pell. Mike Pell, I believe he does a lot of the Web 3.0 design for Microsoft Studios. Nouriel Roubini is just a renowned economist who is very, very, he's always more of a bear than a bull. Just look him up. He's a cool guy. But in this conversation, we went through just the basics of why crypto is not a necessity. Let's be very transparent, though. A lot of the currencies we use today, if not all of them, are fiat. So, you know, things like an IOU, it's based off of the promise of, hey, this dollar has value because, and then it's currency. So that's kind of the whole belief, or is the belief of crypto. Because you own this coin, it's supposed to be backed by some kind of value elsewhere. And I think that the frustration is that you've had all of these bad actors. Horrendous. Like Sam Bankman, want to talk about such a, I just hope I don't. Yeah.
Go for it.
Anyway, you want to talk about such a clown, like to go to basically, again, like, here's the unfortunate thing in life, and you're going to realize this either with personal interaction or with somebody you meet in the business world. Typically, people approach you because they want something. Typically, people are acting a certain way because they need to create a certain identity, whether it's for themselves, psychologically, or it's for them to create this persona where it's like, hey, it's going to get me in the room with, bigger dogs. And I can make up a million different scenarios. But what I'm trying to say is to have somebody go talk about, hey, we need all this regulation, we need this, we need that. And then, have somebody that they're significantly close with run a trading branch of an exchange that nobody knew their money was getting sent to this branch, and then being basically, I'm just going to say it, pissed away. Like, top it off, if you watch that Caroline Ellison video, for her to sit there and, again, I'm not here to insult Ivy League schools, but for her to sit there, come from Harvard and say, hey, we don't need stop losses, like, blank me out, go blank yourself, like, get out of here. You're going to act like you're on top of the world because you have $9 billion in assets, and now you can just, we can just gamble. That's cool. I mean, that's people's lives. Yes, money's a tool, but that tool allows you to get further with, what you desire to do with it. And it just really,
it's hard to hear from you.
It sucks and sucks, but at the end of the day, I'm also getting to a point, especially with our generation, I'm so done with white collar crimes being treated differently than just any other part of the justice system.
It seems like they're just getting away with it nowadays.
Oh yeah, it's like, hey, $9 billion lost, cool. I'm actually going to go to my
and then he was on interviews.
Yeah,
a couple weeks later.
Please watch the CoffeeZilla interview. Love CoffeeZilla.
I love him too.
Just absolutely, we won't get in Logan Paul side stuff. But again, like that's the kind of stuff that, unfortunately, as this country grew, like what is the definition of a Ponzi scheme based off of? I believe it's based off of I want to say Charles Ponzi. That probably could be way wrong, but the guy's last name, where you go, borrow money, give it to the original investor, and then continue the process.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, we have in human existence, unfortunately, repeated painful learning mistakes over and over and over. And going back, the reason I mentioned Nouriel Roubini was we went through three things, and just the basics. It was, if you were to just make a shopping list and you've got it down to the penny with what you're going to go and purchase at the store, you arrive at the store, now you're 20% short because your crypto has gone down. You don't want that. That's not a benefit. For another example, let's talk about transaction. Let's just talk about the amount of transaction and the transaction fees. For every couple of thousand transactions are on the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, it's probably it's probably 1,000 to 1 million for every Visa / MasterCard transaction. It's occurring, Venmo, you name it. And then I think thirdly was again the fact that even with regulation, if there is just human nature, human entity that's going to be able to control all this money, they're probably not going to do what's in your best interest. They're not going to be a fiduciary. They're not going to sit there and say, hey, let me put 10% away so I can make sure that's going to be there in the future, and then get my individual client 5% off interest, and then I'm going to take another 10%. I'm going to invest it in. No, like if you look at what Alameda did, like it was just like absolute. Hey, let's put $9 billion just on BTC going up today, and if it doesn't, like cool, we'll figure out how to make the other $9 billion back. So stuff like that. Yeah. So going back, I do think crypto has a use case. I don't know what it is. I've always been fascinated because, for example, one of the coins that I had ran into, I don't know if it's still around, but it was Zapcoin. And if I'm correct, Zapcoin was based off the idea that you would be able to go in, purchase for example, apartment complex, and then due to the amount of money that was deposited by the investor, that would then be their stake in that building. And then in theory, then they would be able to get dividends transferred from, USD currency into, Zapcoin, and then be able to then leverage it out. I could be wrong. They could have done a different process, but just that analogy in our brains, all of a sudden it's like, we're clicking. It's like, okay, well, if maybe not houses, could we do it for, I don't know, seafood? Could we do it for, could you do it for scrap? I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like the whole purpose of crypto is just to digitize I would say, the currency economy, even though, we already have that with Forex trading and all that kind of stuff.
Would you say that's the same for NFTs too? Or what's your opinion on that?
Mike Pell said this. I hope I don't get in trouble here, but he said, I can't wait until there's a day where instead of it's saved to PDF, it's saved to NFT.
Oh, for sure.
And I was like, dude, I've only had one glass of wine. Like, we got to chill here. I was like, but again, with that thought process in place, and this was something that you can even go into, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but this is just like, okay, let's break down a scenario. They're doing this in real estate. They're trying to have you purchase a property through having the deed or having the ownership be in the NFT itself.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, would it be beneficial to have someone of the real estate industry build around the approach to NFTs? And it's like, no. I'll give you an example on this. And there could possibly be a way to better this. But in general, this is why it wouldn't be beneficial for that industry, so to speak. The person who then creates that NFT is still going to be able to get royalties unless, again, could be different. You can make it so that there's no royalty pays. But let's say this, if I'm a builder and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to build a house and then make an NFT of the house. So then you have to buy it in this NFT version. But every time it resells, I still get a percentage.
Interesting.
If you're the builder, absolutely. If you're the owner, why?
Why would you do that?
Why would I do that? I'm already getting an appreciation in value. Again, like I'm looking at the last 3 years, not 2008, but I'm getting this appreciation in value, and now I still got to pay, you know, Mr. Builder 2, 3, 4% because what, he built a house and then was the first to create it. And I think the problem is, especially with how this economy is going, monopolization. Because when you start like BlackRock, Blackstone, you know, and they get top it off. Again, I'm more venting at this point, but you have all these huge corporations who spend an endless amount of money. There's no cap on how much you can give a politician, and like endless amount of just money to get somebody to lobby in your favor. And then top it off. This is the part that just knocks my socks off, and I'm like, okay, why is nobody checking this out? But how much money that's been bankrolled to purchase all these single family, you know, developments and single family homes and multifamily homes that are now owned not by, you know, a typical average Joe in the USA. I've now got, you know, Mr. BlackRock, who now has what, 5 trillion under management, 15 trillion under management. Cool. What am I at? Not that.
Yeah.
So it's just moments like that. And again, being bankrolled by the Chinese. Let that sink in. So when you start to look at all these big entities that are just getting bigger and building themselves up until there is, you know, a mistake, until there is, you know, for example, GE got blue chip stock of the century and just poor management went down. So there is always this opportunity for failure. But the question I always ask myself is, just like the bailouts and, you know, 08, at what cost? So going back to real estate, I did want to hit this and then I'm going to be done. I feel like I've talked way too much.
No, you did. This has been great.
But no, you guys have been awesome. Seriously, I appreciate each and every one of you. But no, let's talk about real estate. So,
well, also, sorry, not to cut you off,
definitely
we're all, well, we're basically a couple years younger than you, but like I will, in the next couple of years, I want to like purchase a house, like purchase of a house. So yeah, like in your answer, kind of say if you think this is a good time or not.
So okay, so this is what I had to learn recently. It's, again, I'm sure that there's like the 15-year-old millionaire who's like, oh, you're finally gonna go down, like, congratulations. And I'm like, okay, like, give me a break here, man. But the difference between having cash, having capital, and cash flow are two very different things. So having like 100,000 in the bank feels great, but if you have the ability to go, and this is exactly why I'm currently in the process of trying to purchase more additional real estate, or also I'm in the process of doing development. I'm going to go on a tangent here, so I gotta stay focused here. So to be able to purchase something that will hold its value, again, it's not going to be the most liquid. You have to be very realistic with this. Like exactly why 2008 happened was because everyone was trying to get illiquid assets into cash as fast as possible, and to do that, sometimes you have to do a fire sale. And when it's one, and then it's another, and then
you're done.
I'm not the best at explaining that. So you're done. Yes. Yeah. If you're able to purchase an asset that isn't necessarily going to, you know, risk this huge depreciation, but also be able to entail, you know, a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or not even like 15% year over, which would be ungodly, but if you can do that, that's awesome. Year over year return, that's what I would recommend. Just being able to understand, hey, I have a asset that would hold its value and also generate me income on top of that. And here's one of the best parts. Like, for example, if you go and you buy, let's say I buy a stake in an apartment complex, until I actually get back my original investment, if I'm correct, you don't have to pay taxes on it. Because in theory, you've not had a gain. You've not had a loss, but you've not had a gain. So, for example, there was a different, again, just using it over home park because that's my brain's fresh on that, but where essentially they've not paid any taxes on any of the income they've had because it's not income. They've never recouped the original investment.
Until they sell it.
Yes, yeah, but then that's where capital gains kicks in. And again, what I could be saying is absolutely wrong, but that's something that once you start to learn how to use the tax system to your advantage or understand how to just navigate it, that's such a huge benefit. One of the best, I would say, pieces of advice that I haven't taken but should, and I recommend even for just everybody out there, go buy TurboTax and just spend a day. Spend a day understanding, like, hey, if I run a business like this, like, how can I do it? Don't do what FTX did. Don't try and run a multi-billion-dollar corporation off that. Not what I said at all. So let's not take that out of context. But understand, like, hey, if I do this, how does it benefit me? And honestly, if you have somebody who's a friend who isn't a tax attorney, or no, not a tax attorney, but who even just one of my good friends, he just got his master's in finance, and like first thing I did was like, hey, help me out with this. Mm-hmm. And he's like, now I know why you consider me a friend. I'm joking. But at the end of the day, it's just like understand how to build up the knowledge you have by allowing other people who are better at you in different segments of industry, business, life, take advice. Because that's how I've learned. That's how every other human's going to learn. And until we actually have that Neuralink who just like, uploads the Library of Alexandria kind of
maybe one day it could definitely happen. I'm not going to lie.
I feel it.
it's something.
Literally. But no, that's when that day happens, don't be afraid of it. Mm-hmm. So that's my advice. But last thing before we close this down, I am intrigued to see so going back, does it make sense for you to buy it? What are the expenses? What's your cash flow? Are you just buying this for personal reasons? Are you buying a multifamily for that personal reason? And then, the other renter is going to help offset your overall expenses, let alone, if you actually even end up being able to cash flow the property, which is even better. But that's just an example of where I think you have to be case by case with what you end up doing. Don't just go out there and be like, I need to buy a house. It's like, no, dude, like, one of my very good friends just got a citizenship, like absolutely living the American dream. Edgar, shout out Edgar. He bought his first house at 23, before even his parents did, if I'm correct. Worked his ass off. Like, was first college graduate. Sorry, I'm getting emotional because I love this kid. But he just put rubber to the pavement. I still remember we were working at Planet Fitness together, and he was like, nah, man, I'm not going to be able to buy a house. And I was like, I guarantee we're going to get you a house next year. Bought a townhouse, has somebody living with him. Dude's paying him rent. Basically covers his entire mortgage.
Crazy.
But it's moments like that where, like, unfortunately, when you don't have the knowledge, when you don't have the understanding of how to navigate, you tell yourself, hey, like, the ship can't leave port. There is a way. Mm-hmm. It might take time. It might take strategizing. It might take a deeper understanding, which will require more time. You getting more into whatever it is you want to try and accomplish or complete. It is worth it. Because guess what? At the end of the day, we're all going to die. Mm-hmm. What were you able to do before that happens? So
I think that's a good place to end it right there.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Seriously, guys, I appreciate it. Seriously.
Thank you for coming on.
And, no, thank you guys. And I thank you guys, and I thank all your viewers. And I'm going to let you keep going.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next Steps to Talk episode. See ya.